If you told me last year that I'd beat every Borderlands game using only the starting pistol, I'd have probably said, what am I, stupid? The whole point of the game is to get better guns as you level up. Why the fuck would I beat it with only a level 1 gun? But here we are. Before I let you know what the rules for this run are, you should subscribe because I'm trying to hit 1 billion subscribers by the end of this month. So let's set the rules for this bad boy. The first rule is obvious, I can only use the starting pistol. The second is, melee is allowed, but no melee builds or taking the piss and never using the gun. Also, in this game, slamming exists, which is also allowed, but I only really used it a couple of times because it felt a bit cheesy. The third is, I'm not allowed to use grenades. And lastly, my action skill is allowed because, trust me, it's hard enough with it, and if I couldn't use it, I'd probably be in a white padded room somewhere in a straitjacket. So the game starts with me having some kinky fun with Lilith. She might look mad and like she wants me dead, but trust me, that's just part of the roleplay. Athena was the chosen one for this challenge because her action skill seemed the most useful. It's a shield that absorbs the damage dealt by enemies and stores it as energy, which you can then throw, and it'll deal a base damage plus double the stored energy. This game gave me 2 starting weapons, an assault rifle and a pistol, but I decided to go with the pistol for this because most of the other games had a starting pistol, so this felt more right. This little cock tease does a nutty 13 damage with a fire rate of 2.5 and it deals shock damage. This gave me a lot of confidence, and when the game started out, I made one of the most inaccurate statements I've ever made in my whole life. Like, holy fuck, I've never been more wrong. I have no idea how difficult this one is going to be. I have a feeling it probably won't be that difficult. I don't think it'll be more difficult than the first Borderlands was. I think that one will have been the most difficult. I took this baby for its first spin and I was feeling good. It felt like it hit pretty hard, and it dealing a bit of shock damage had me feeling even more confident. I met Jack, who was getting his little cheeks clapped and needed a sexy gaming god like myself to save him. It's here I took my first death to a level 2 enemy, which I think is the earliest I've ever taken a death doing this challenge. Looking back, this was the first sign that this game was going to be a fucking nightmare to beat with this thing, but at the time I was still feeling confident. I gave Jack a res, and on our way to the escape ships we ran into Zarpedon and this creepy thing, and I was just a little baby level 2 who just started the game, so we put our tails between our legs and we hauled ass out of there. We ran into another boss, but this guy wasn't as creepy, so we fought him. I think this is the slowest I've ever taken out a starting boss, and I realised that at the time fighting him, but for some reason it still didn't set off any red flags. I spoke a bit more rubbish. I think this isn't going to be that bad. I don't think this is going to be that difficult. Then I got in a little box and got blasted to the moon. When I got to the moon, I found out that I couldn't actually breathe there. But thankfully this lady thought I looked like a sexy little snack, so she helped me out. I had the lungs of a 90-year-old chain smoker, so the first course of action was for me to get an oxygen kit. I had to go and kill this guy called Deadlift so that lady would help me get to Concordia, and it was here I had an intelligence malfunction and just stood in the electricity and let myself die. Apart from that, I didn't really have any issue with this boss and killed him fast, furthering the illusion that I was some hot shit who would have no issue with this challenge. I grabbed the Digistruct key, then got myself a sick new car to get around this absolute maze of a moon. However, on my way to the next mission, I became suicidal and decided burning to death in the lava was the best way to go. While trying to get into Concordia, I had some issues with the law due to my use of a certain F word. Despite the fact I've been on this moon a few minutes and have already killed a bunch of guys, I just got a little slap on the wrist, then got taken down to Nurse Nina's kinky sex dungeon / medical clinic. After testing positive for AIDS, I was allowed into Concordia. I tried to go talk to the Merith about finding the jamming signal but he refused to see me, so I went to Moxie and she helped me out. While using the transmitters to find the signal, we caught the Merif trying to engage in ungodly acts with a robot, and if that wasn't bad enough, he then tried to trap me in Concordia, probably so he could touch my bits as well. I snuck out of Concordia and went to find the signal source, which involved a lot of fighting, and considering how difficult this game gets a little bit later on, this pistol was actually holding up pretty good against these guys. I ran into Red Belly, who, looking at them now compared to the other bosses later on, I absolutely whooped. But at the time, I thought I was going through some tough shit with this guy. After destroying the relays, I discovered that treacherous horny bastard the Merif was working for the bad guys. I told the police that the Merif needs to go to Horny jail, and they couldn't agree more. It was during all this that I witnessed the most romantic thing I've ever seen. That police bot gave his life so we could get in that office and save his girlfriend from the Merif's smelly knob. The Merif had a mental breakdown, then tried to murder us, but unfortunately for him, he had spent too much time defiling that poor bot and not enough time working on his shot. Because he completely missed, then obviously we had to kill him. I met this child/old man, whatever he is. He told me where I can get the stuff I need to make a robot army. And to say there was a difficulty spike here is a massive understatement. This mission took me hours to finish. I don't even know what happened. Everything was fine, then I came here and I was struggling so bad. I don't know if the gun just fell off massively out of nowhere or if I maybe had a stroke. Either way, from this moment on, this challenge had me tilted off the face of the planet. The game would kick me while I was down, and pretty much every time I went to do anything in this mission, it went wrong and I had to go do a million other things before I could do what I was there to do in the first place. I witnessed a lovers' quarrel between this guy and his girlfriend over her lack of nickname usage. Then found out her lack of enthusiasm for the relationship was because she was being held captive and forced to be his girlfriend. She was in need of a hero, preferably one in the form of Spider-Man but with cat ears and without the powers, brains or muscles. I struggled emotionally, physically and sexually the entire time while making my way to rescue her. Anywhere there was enemies, I was dead. After pulling myself together long enough to make it to the boss, I had a mental breakdown and became convinced that this was the hardest boss I ever had to fight, even though it was one of the easiest in the game and only took me less than 20 minutes to beat. The gods could see I had a gaping hole for an ass at this point and kindly popped this corrosive barrel on the boss, killing him in seconds. I found out Skipper was actually an AI made by that boss I just killed because his pickup game was so shit. After side quests, it was time for me to head to the robot production plant to build the robot army. The game had some mercy on me at first because I mostly only had to fight these little bugs, but little did I know this was because the game had something coming up so horrific it was giving me a nice break before putting me through it. A man being held captive in the facility heard that the amazing Spider Kitty, who never ever dies and mows through enemies at lightning speeds, was there and asked me to rescue him. I cleared out all the scavs and I'm not even trolling this time. I actually did kill them all without dying. I thought I was some hot shit. Then I saved Gladstone, who just happened to be working on the constructor, which is exactly the kind of thing we needed to make a robot army. The scav stole his bits before he finished making it, so all I had to do was get the bits back from the scavs and we'd have ourselves a robot army. which sounded too good to be true, but I tried to stay optimistic. Taking out these little security bots for their eyes was pretty rough. I dealt a really tiny amount of damage to them, and this had me rightfully worried about what the enemies at the end of the game would be like. Felicity, aka Skipper, was feeling apprehensive about being put into the constructor to control the robot army. I had to let turrets kill scavs, but I had no time for any of that reading or listening nonsense. I just went in there and started blasting. But once I stopped being an idiot, I got the next part pretty easily. Felicity was installed into a power suit to get some practice at controlling a body and also to get the legs back to the constructor. She engaged in a bit of murder, which she didn't like at all. I installed the rest of the pieces to the constructor, and then all that was left to do was install Felicity into the constructor, which she was really getting into a panic over, especially after killing those guys. While making my way to the diagnostics chamber, Felicity started begging us not to put her in the constructor, which was making me feel really guilty because I'm not a psycho, but unfortunately Jack is, so she ended up in the robot. Unfortunately for me, and only me, because I was the only one actually there to deal with it, Felicity didn't take too kindly to being forced into this body, and now that she was in a giant robot body with turrets and the ability to create unlimited combat bots, she had the means to kill me. And that's exactly what she did. A lot. The damage I dealt to her was low, which was a big problem because she could make bots that heal her, and sometimes she really took the piss with us. You know when you're bad at something and you convince yourself that something else is holding you back because otherwise you'd have to accept that you suck? Well, for me, I became convinced that I couldn't beat Felicity because she had that little healing drone out all the time, and that paired with the fact that the gun loaders she spawns later in the fight don't go away if you die, caused me to experience anger that I'm surprised didn't have me in tears. Felicity, I swear to Christ, get out my face! Oh, this repair drone is what's making me so mad.
Shield activated.
I can't damage her because she heals the whole way back. And I have no ammo. Oh my god. If that's that fucking repair bot, get away. You heal constantly. Man, I really don't want to redo this. This is so hard. How is it so? Oh my god. Oh my god. I can't believe I'm on a boss for this long. I've been on a boss for this long, and it's like a start game boss. We're level 16. I'm level 16. What is the end boss gonna be like? How am I gonna do this? Oh man, this sucks. This sucks so bad. Man, this really sucks. Why are they still here? This is not the bots that you fight at the start. This is not the starting bots. Oh. Oh, I'm so done. I'm so ready to quit. I'm so... I of course had to die after getting the boss under a quarter health, as is tradition with Borderlands challenges. I think this was the only fight in the game where I used the slam, because not much ammo was dropping and I had to try and save some of it to take out the repair bots, but honestly the slam probably wasn't that strong if it still took me over 3 hours to beat the bitch while using it. Eventually, after around 3.5 hours and 28 deaths, I finally killed Felicity, which provided a relief I'm surprised didn't make me orgasm. Wait, it's done? Did I do it? What is happening? Yes! Yes! With the robot army ready, it was time to head to Helios to get the laser turned off. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but the whole point of all of this was to turn off a laser that's destroying the moon. Things weren't getting any easier on Helios, obviously, since I was still using this level 1 pistol and the enemies were just getting stronger and stronger, which resulted in me being viciously assaulted by these big muscular armoured gentlemen. I headed to research and development to rescue Gladstone and some other scientists so they can hack and lower the Helios defences. I fought stalkers, which quickly became the most annoying enemy to fight in this game because my gun dealt pretty much no damage to them, and because they didn't really attack me back, my action skill barely dealt any damage to them either, so it took forever to kill them. The first scientist I had to rescue wanted me to get his picture of his smelly, ugly son, his words, not mine, because his son had anger issues and will be pissed if he finds out his dad is prioritising saving the moon and everyone on it over looking at his ugly ass face. The second scientist also didn't give a fuck about the moon or any of the people on it and refused to do anything until I rescued his teddy bear. While making my way to the teddy, I ran into these fine gentlemen who roughed me up pretty bad. I eventually pulled myself together and murdered all those men who probably had families and were just taking orders, because I'm not some sicko who just lets a man go without his teddy bear. The last scientist was locked in his office and just needed me to get his keys from a stalker, then we'd be on our way, which I thought sounded easy enough. That was until I started fighting the stalker and genuinely thought this was the end of the challenge right here. I didn't think I'd be able to kill this with my pistol or melee because I dealt so little damage to it. Every time I even put a little dent in its shield or health, it would go invisible and regen it all back. Eventually, after an embarrassing amount of time, the Borderlands gods decided to stop bullying me and allowed my melees to all hit and my ability to deal some actual damage, and the stalker dropped dead. I saved all 3 scientists, then we all headed back to Jack while they lowered the defences to the laser. Jack became paranoid that one of the scientists may betray us, so he had all of them sucked into space while they all suffered a horrendous death. Me and Lilith were a little freaked out that Jack just killed those guys, even though we've been killing loads of guys, but the moon was still being destroyed, so we didn't have any time to argue about it. I did this boring stuff. I had to destroy these things to blow something up and clear my path to the laser, and I died a lot during it. I died repeatedly trying to get the robot army up and running, and when I finally did, they did pretty much nothing to help for the rest of the game. I got me and Jack into the command center to shut down the laser, and surprise surprise, it didn't work, which meant I was gonna have to find some other way. I disabled the force field power sources, and it was now time to shut down the laser. But before I could do that, it was finally time for me to fight Zarpedon. This boss took me longer to kill than any other boss in any of my other Borderlands starting pistol challenges. I was really under-leveled here. I was level 21 and she was level 25, and my stupid stubborn ass refused to do side quests to level up, and because of that I lost like 5+ hours of my life to this boss. The reason for this was my first time playing this game, and the whole time I was playing, Zarpedon was talked about as if she was the main bad guy, which put me under the impression that this was the final boss fight in the game, so I thought I'd just suffer through it and eventually I'd beat her and the game would be over, which was not the case. I wouldn't really say this boss was actually difficult. I think I just struggled because I got myself so tilted and that made me do dumb stuff, which caused me to die a lot. Eventually I realised I could stay close to her and avoid her melee attacks that she would spam when I was close, and I'd just damage her with my pistol and action skill. I took out Robot Zoppadon, and this is my reaction to it right here. I thought I just beat the final boss of the game. Yes! Yes! It's over! I actually beat it! No way! So you can imagine my surprise when this bitch just busts out the suit and starts beating my ass. I'd say fighting this version of her was more difficult than beating the robot version of her because she didn't have an easy to dodge melee attack that she'd just spam, but it only took me about 2.5 hours to beat this version of her. I think because I didn't let myself get as tilted as before. Also, I'm gonna call out Jack for a second because he was supposed to be there to kill the ads while I fought the boss, but all he actually did was nothing when I was being attacked by everything. Then he'd take aggro from the boss when I needed her to attack me for my action skill. So fuck Jack, he was doing nothing but being a hindrance. I used a lot of melee in this fight, but that was because I was trying to save my pistol ammo to stop her from regenerating her shield when I didn't have my condom on, aka my action skill. I killed Zoppadon for real this time, and here's me talking out my asshole again, thinking I beat the game when I actually didn't. I've beat the game with it. I've done it. Oh my god. I can't believe I've done it. I cannot believe I've done it. Oh my god. Zoppadon was warning Jack on her deathbed to stay away from the vault, but she didn't get to say why before Jack shot her in the face. Me and Jack headed down to the laser, which turned out to be the eye of the destroyer, and the eye was pretty mad about being shut down, but we got it done. It was at this point when Jack told me we'd be going to the vault, I finally came out of my delusion that the game was finished. While trying to reboot and regain control of the laser, Lilith, Roland and Moxie betrayed Jack and destroyed the eye, which he was pretty upset about. I headed to the main excavation site looking for a way to the vault, and I mostly ran past the enemies here because they took forever to kill due to my gun sucking poopy buttholes. It was here I had to face against the worst boss in all of Borderlands. I genuinely thought this was the end of this challenge because I had an IQ of about 10, probably from the vicious beating I got from all the other bosses, and didn't notice the jump pads on the floor that I could use to hit the boss with my action skill. I dealt pretty much no damage with my gun to this boss, and I barely got a chance to even shoot it because it spent most of its time out of the map, and when it wasn't out of the map, it was still a bit of a struggle to hit sometimes because the projectile speed on my gun was so slow. I was still being stubborn and refusing to do side quests because I'm legally stupid and thought it was better to play at a massive handicap than take an hour or so to get myself leveled up. And this resulted in me spending about 5 hours fighting this boss instead of the probably 1 hour it would have taken if I just did some side quests. Even though each of my lives were lasting a good 20 minutes or so, I was still struggling to get it below half health, so after about 4 hours of attempts, I decided to stop being such a stubborn bastard and do some side quests. Once I got myself appropriately leveled, it literally took me 30 minutes to kill this thing. With the boss on 1 HP, the game attempted to send me into cardiac arrest by getting me stuck on an invisible wall, but its efforts failed to stop me from ending this nightmare. I entered this Iridium place and was quickly executed by all the Dal soldiers who got there before me. Usually with these challenges, I beat the boss, then fighting the normal enemies is a nice break between fighting the next boss. But in this game, I beat the boss, then I get viciously fucked in every way imaginable by the enemies after. Eventually, I just ran past as many of the enemies as possible because fuck that. I was running for my life after getting through the shield, but eventually I couldn't run any longer and was forced to fight enemies if I wanted to get to the next area. This wasn't actually too difficult. It took me a while because I was under leveled and dealt pretty much no damage, but these guys had mercy and weren't very aggressive. Before I could go to fight the final boss, I had to take out this mini boss who had a lot of health, but that didn't stop her from getting a lot of butt cheeks spanked. And there I was, all of the embarrassing myself on stream, on the brink of tears from the abuse I received from the bosses, was about to come to an end. All I had to do was beat this final boss, and I will have beaten all of the Borderlands games with only the starting pistol. So no pressure. When I seen this boss, I was suspicious. After everything I had been through, was this little guy really the final boss in the whole game? Every time I got this guy's shield down, he'd get it all the way back and start using a different element for his attacks. This wasn't that difficult, but I'm ass, so of course I died quite a lot anyway. And the best part about dying is I'd have to go through all the stages over and over and over again, which made the death extra painful. Just how I like it. After dying a few times, I had learned my lesson about being stubborn and did some side quests because my body didn't have the strength to take another 5-hour beating from a boss. After I beat all 4 stages of the Sentinel, I kept myself composed and didn't declare my victory just yet because that was a suspiciously underwhelming final boss. There was shit dripping out my asshole suddenly as this huge guy ripped his way out of the ground. However, that was an unnecessary response as this boss actually ended up being one of the easiest bosses in the game. Once I took away all this boss's health and shield, I was back to prematurely celebrating myself beating the game, only to find out that this was just one of multiple phases. When I reached the final stage, my Twitch chat had no faith in me to end this due to my history of choking at the end of boss fights. But I proved to them that I am the absolute master at keeping my cool despite my lengthy choking history and beat the final boss, and it's for real this time. That pussy Jack came in after I had killed everything and while profiting off of all my hard work, had his cunty face smashed in by Lilith. I got scared for a second that I was going to have to beat up Jack because he was sitting there giving a bad guy speech and he'd clearly went full bad guy evil psycho now. But all that ended up happening was Lilith tried to have me executed by firing squad, which is a weird way to end our kinky roleplay. But I was saved by that creepy thing from the start of the game who said no more sexy fun time as a big bad was gonna happen. And that's how the game ends. So, can you beat Borderlands the pre-sequel with the starting pistol? If you hate yourself enough, yes. This was by far the most difficult game to beat with the starting pistol. It had the easiest final boss, but holy fuck, that is genuinely the most difficult thing I've done in a video game. But there is another. A challenge that will probably push the starting pistol to its limit and likely be impossible, but that isn't gonna stop me from trying. To end the starting pistol saga, I'm going to try to beat every raid boss in every Borderlands game using only the starting pistol. If you want to watch me do these challenges live, you should follow me on Twitch, which I'll link in the description. And you should also like and subscribe so I can stop being a disappointment. If you didn't like this video, you should let me know where to meet you at sunrise and we'll have a pistol duel to settle our differences. Bye!